if I was a member of the public, to ask you, Chair, or any of the administration's cabinet or councillors, they would see this as £2 million underspent from the budget, despite the budget process being a tough one, and many debates about the lack of funding for the Advice Bureau, or waste swimming pool, etc., etc. So we've seen those cuts, and yet here we are with an underspend of £2 million from the revenue budget. So it'd be interesting to see what your answer would be to a member of the public that quite look at this and say, well, frontline services in my area or in the city have been cut, and yet you have £2 million that you certainly can use for other things. Those other things aren't really defined. And that's an issue, it needs clarity.
The £2 million underspent, I understand Councillor Holmes's position on this. In setting the budget, we have to set a permanent position. We have to set what it's going to be for the medium term into the future. There has been an underspend of £2.2 million on the revenue budget. Yes, we can take that £2.2 million, but it can't be used to offset permanent pressures that we've got on a permanent basis. So there is a difference between the setting of the budget at that point in time and the out-turn position. Yes, £2.2 million could be used for a number of things, and yes, there could be a wish list as long as we could spend this £2.2 million. You could ask the public, you could ask members, you could ask the cabinet. We could spend it 20, 30, 40 times over, absolutely. The recommendations or the proposals in this report that we're asking cabinet to approve are strategic decisions that have come from management that say there are critical things that we need to deliver. We need to deliver things around the property rationalisation, otherwise we won't hit the MTFP. We need to address insurance valuations because it's a critical issue that's being picked up by external auditors. So there are a number of things that would come for us to say we would like X, Y and Z to be delivered, but these are the strategic things that we are proposing to members to say they are the critical things that we need to be addressing at this time.
I understand the point that Councillor Holmes is making about could this effectively have deferred savings. I think the other thing you need to take into account if you're explaining to the public is that we are effectively on a journey through a period of time around a decreasing level of funding from government. And what you could argue here is that we have overachieved our saving level in this first year. However, we still have £45 million to save. So, are we £2 million underspent, or have we just got £43 million to save? So, the reality is that it's not that we're at a standstill position where our funding level is fixed and that we have £2 million underspent, in which case I think your point would be right. But actually, our funding level in future years is going down and down and down. So what we have to do is try and forecast on both income and expenditure how we will get that gradient to match the gradient that's been set for us in terms of the reductions in our grant level. We've slightly overachieved, and we are effectively therefore saving slightly ahead of the schedule we'd set. And therefore you see that in the outturn, which is a single day and a point in time that says this is the amount of saving you made at that point.
Interesting that officers are making the political arguments here this evening. On this particular issue about the 2.2 million underspend, I actually disagree with the overall scrutiny recommendation. I don't think that's what we decided, because there was a lot of discussion at that meeting. Even members from the Labour Party were querying in fact they termed it as free money. And they wanted to spend it on other things. The majority of them wanted to spend it on other things, but other people didn't. But everybody had their own view as to where it should be spent. And actually, it comes back to Councillor Holmes's observations, and that is that there's no transparency. It seems to have just come and slipped into this cabinet report. This is what the officers particularly want to do, clearly, because they've made the point. And councillors have to accept what's being said. Well, as far as I can see, there are lots of councillors, including people from your own party, that are unhappy with this decision.
Councillor Holmes and Councillor Graves' points you made would be correct if we were in the position of having a standstill budget or an improving position over the coming years. But we don't. The government is cutting our grants year on year on year. So the reality of the outturn position, all it really means is that we have £2 million less to save in future years. And whilst we would all love to be able to allocate that for projects and things that we as councillors all come into local government to do to improve services and to provide more from our residents, the reality is, unfortunately, because of the years of cuts that we've got to come, that just isn't possible. So that's the reality that